"You're fired." The words echoed through the silent boardroom. The CEO, Richard Blake, burst out laughing. "You can't fire me," he smirked. "You're just a janitor." What happened next stunned every executive, every employee, and every person watching the live stream across Silvertech's corporate offices. The janitor didn't flinch. She calmly placed a thick folder on the mahogany boardroom table and slid it across. Dozens of eyes watched as Richard picked it up, still smirking. But when he opened it, his expression changed instantly. The blood drained from his face. The smirk disappeared. His hands began to shake. Inside were legal documents, contracts, and ownership certificates that revealed a truth no one in the company could have ever imagined. The janitor wasn't just a janitor. She was the silent majority owner of Silvertech. Let's rewind the clock. 15 years earlier. Maria Johnson walked through the glass doors of Silvertech for the first time wearing a navy blue janitor's uniform and carrying a plastic bucket. She was in her early 40s. Quiet. Polite. The kind of person most employees smiled at briefly before walking past and forgetting seconds later. Every evening, after the engineers shut down their computers and the managers locked their offices, Maria began her shift. She swept floors, wiped whiteboards, and emptied the trash cans filled with coffee cups and energy bar wrappers. To everyone else, Maria was invisible. But she noticed everything. What no one knew was that Maria was no ordinary cleaner. Years before joining Silvertech, Maria had been a brilliant software engineer with a track record of building systems that powered billion-dollar companies. But a devastating family loss and a long personal battle with grief forced her to step away from the tech world entirely. When she returned, she didn't want the spotlight. She didn't want to be known. Instead, she quietly used the wealth she'd saved, and earned from past projects, to invest in small startups with big dreams. One of them? A tiny software company called Silvertech. Back then, Silvertech wasn't much. Just an idea being sketched out by an ambitious young entrepreneur named James Carter. He had passion, talent, and vision, but no money. Maria believed in his dream. They met in a local cafe where she offered to fund the company's initial launch. She didn't want her name on the website, no photos, no titles. Her only conditions: remain anonymous, have majority ownership, and stay in the background. James agreed. Maria created a shell corporation to handle the investment and stayed off the radar. James became the face of the company, and Silvertech slowly began to rise. As Silvertech expanded, so did Maria's curiosity. She wanted to see what her investment was turning into, not just from reports and emails, but with her own eyes. She contacted James and made an unusual request: allow her to work inside the company in the most overlooked role possible. He hesitated, but ultimately agreed. So Maria became the janitor. Not out of necessity, but by choice. To her, it was the perfect disguise. No meetings, no attention, no pressure. Just a front-row seat to everything happening behind the scenes. From gossip near the coffee machine to tense conversations behind half-closed doors, Maria heard it all. And she took notes. Over the years, she watched executives come and go. She saw honest employees rise, and corrupt ones get promoted even faster. She kept a quiet eye on financial irregularities, shady deals, and especially the man who would eventually rise to CEO, Richard Blake. Charismatic, confident, and cunning, Richard quickly took over leadership after James stepped down to pursue other ventures. At first, Maria gave him the benefit of the doubt. But it didn't take long for his mask to slip. Richard began cutting costs in all the wrong places. Layoffs became routine. Employee morale tanked. Meanwhile, his bonuses and vacation homes mysteriously grew larger. And through it all, he treated the janitorial staff, especially Maria, as beneath him. But Maria never reacted. She smiled, nodded, and kept pushing her cart down the hall. Then one day, Maria saw a printed memo lying on a desk. It detailed plans to outsource almost half of Silvertech's staff to cut labor costs. Dozens of loyal employees would be let go. The document had Richard's signature at the bottom. That was her final straw. She gathered all her documents. Ownership records. Emails. Internal memos. She met with a lawyer. And she prepared for the day she would no longer stay silent. The CEO of Silvertech, Richard Blake, joined the company 5 years after Maria made her original investment. Back then, he was everything a modern tech company wanted: polished, confident, and ruthlessly ambitious. With a degree from a top-tier university and a resume filled with buzzwords and boardroom talk, Richard quickly climbed the ladder. To most, he was a rising star. To Maria, he was a warning sign. From the moment he arrived, Richard had no idea who Maria really was. To him, she was nothing more than a background character, just a quiet, older janitor who kept her head down and said very little. He never asked her name. Never acknowledged her presence. In fact, he once walked right past her, dropped his coffee cup on the floor, and said, "Clean that up, would you?" Maria said nothing. But she never forgot. From her quiet vantage point, Maria saw everything, things the board didn't, things the public never would. She mopped floors outside late-night meetings and wiped glass walls during confidential calls. She overheard whispered conversations and saw documents left unattended. While no one looked twice at her, she watched everyone. And what she saw? It was disturbing. Richard had slowly started reshaping the company, not to innovate, but to enrich himself. He partnered with shady vendors, moved company funds through questionable channels, and closed deals that only benefited the executive team. Office morale plummeted. The culture shifted from purpose-driven to profit-obsessed. The bright-eyed startup Maria once believed in was now a corporate monster. But Richard didn't stop there. He frequently mocked lower-level employees. He gave speeches about cutting costs while driving a brand-new luxury car into the company parking lot. He demanded longer hours from developers while flying to private getaways. Most disturbingly, he slashed employee benefits and laid off dozens of workers, many of whom had helped build the company from the ground up. And through all of it, he never noticed the one person who knew more about the company than he did, Maria. She didn't speak out. Not yet. Instead, she collected evidence. Maria began quietly documenting what she saw, photographing suspicious paperwork, copying down financial figures, and even recording conversations when necessary. She stored it all in a locked box at home, adding to it week by week, year by year. She knew that the time would come when she would need it. And then, that day arrived. One Monday morning, a memo leaked. Richard had secretly finalized a deal to outsource 40% of Silvertech's staff to a cheaper overseas operation. No warnings. No discussions. Just a sudden plan to gut nearly half the workforce, quietly and efficiently. The layoffs would begin that Friday. Maria was on the list. To Richard, it was just another nameless cost-cutting measure. He had no idea that by putting her name on that list, he had just made the costliest mistake of his life. Because this time, Maria wasn't going to stay silent. She was going to remind them all exactly who she was. It was Friday morning. Silvertech's massive open-plan office buzzed with tension. The layoffs were about to begin. Rumors had spread. Faces looked anxious. Desks had been cleared. The staff had been told to attend a mandatory company announcement in the main auditorium. Richard Blake stood on stage, straightening his tie, completely in control, or so he thought. He tapped the mic and began with his usual corporate charm. Today is about restructuring. About ensuring Silvertech stays lean, competitive, and ready for the future. Some tough decisions have been made. But just as he was about to list departments and names, a quiet shuffle broke the silence. From the side of the room, Maria Johnson stepped up onto the stage. She wore her janitor's uniform, same one she always wore. She looked calm, even as hundreds of confused eyes turned to her. Some employees exchanged glances. Others whispered. Why was the janitor on stage? Richard frowned. Maria, this is not the time. Please step down. But Maria didn't step down. She placed a folder on the podium and turned to face the crowd. My name is Maria Johnson, she said clearly. And for the past 15 years, I've worked here. Not just as a janitor, but as the majority owner of Silvertech. The room went silent. Richard blinked. What is this, a joke? Maria opened the folder. Inside were original investment contracts from 15 years ago. Incorporation papers. Documents signed by the founder, James Carter. Records showing the flow of capital from Maria's private investment firm. Ownership percentages. Control clauses. Legal proof that Maria wasn't just a part of Silvertech, she owned it. Gasps rippled through the audience. Phones came out. Employees began filming. Maria continued, 15 years ago, I helped build this company from the ground up. I believed in its mission, in its people. I chose to remain anonymous because I didn't want titles, I wanted truth. So I came in as a janitor, and for over a decade, I watched. And what I've seen, is corruption, greed, and betrayal of everything this company was meant to be. She turned to Richard. You abused your position. You made decisions that hurt people. And worst of all, you believed no one was watching. Richard's face was pale. He tried to respond, but Maria cut him off with just 2 words. You're fired. Gasps. Then silence. Then, applause. One by one, employees stood and clapped. Some cheered. Others had tears in their eyes. The janitor they had walked past for years, the woman most had never truly seen, had just taken back the company with grace, strength, and undeniable authority. Security escorted Richard out, stunned and humiliated. Maria remained calm. Over the following weeks, she made sweeping changes. The layoffs were cancelled. The toxic leadership team was dismantled. Employee support programs were reinstated. And for the first time in years, Silvertech became a place where people felt safe, valued, and seen. This wasn't just a story about a janitor and a CEO. It was a story about vision, patience, and the power of staying true to your values, even when no one's watching. Maria didn't just teach a corrupt CEO a lesson. She taught all of us something far more powerful. Never underestimate the quiet one in the room. They might be the one who built it. If you found this story inspiring, drop a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories with powerful twists. And always remember: respect everyone, because you never know who they really are.